Power to the truth. This is Margo. This is Tuesday, April 16th, 2019, 6:52 p.m. Pacific Time, United States of America. So we're going to focus on earthquakes and specifically something that happened last night or yesterday at Libby, Montana, that it's not on the map today, but they snuck it in after I finished my report yesterday. But there was a mine collapse at Libby, Montana, or near there, that caused a 2.7 magnitude earthquake. I found it this morning when I was looking around on earthquakes and did a short video, morning video that I posted for my subscribers over on Subscribestar, and I had one of my members over there sent me some information about Libby, and it's an interesting place. So we're going to look at this first, and it's quite eye-opening. So here is the magnitude 2.7 mine collapse 26 kilometers west-southwest of Libby, Montana. This happened at 23:49 UTC time, which was 4:49 Pacific time. So that should have been on the map when I did my earthquake report last night, but it was not there. And it was at 0 kilometers depth. And so I did one of my subscribers on Subscribestar sent me some information about Libby, Montana, and I did some further research as well. And apparently it is, if you're not familiar with it, well, we're going to look at it. It's a very toxic place. And here's what it says from Wikipedia. Libby, Montana is a seat in and the county seat of Lincoln County, Montana. The population was 2,628 at the 2010 census. There's a picture of it. Nice, picturesque little Libby, Montana, up in the northwest corner of Montana, and Canada's right across the border. Idaho was over here. It's an elevation of 2,096 feet. It lies in the heart of Kootenai Valley along the Kootenai River, and here are the temperatures. It can get hot. Record highs 110 in July. So anyway, here's the demographics, the economy. Vermiculite mine. In 1919, vermiculite was discovered in the mountains near town. By the time W.R. Grace & Company bought the local mine, it was producing 80% of the vermiculite in the world. Because the local vermiculite contains asbestos, and the mine's byproducts were used in local buildings and landscaping, the town suffered from an extremely high rate of asbestosis. Nearly 10% of the population died from asbestos contamination, and the federal government later charged company officials for complicity. On Friday, May 8, 2009, W.R. Grace & Company was acquitted of charges that it knowingly harmed the people of Libby, Montana. It was also acquitted of subsequently participating in any cover-up. Fred Festa, Chairman, President, and CEO, said in a statement, "The company worked hard to keep the operations in compliance with the laws and standards of the day." Of course, laws and standards change. As of 2015, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, was concluding the removal of asbestos-contaminated soils and other suspect materials in and around and near Libby, and has spent $425 million in Superfund money on cleanup. On June 17, 2009, the EPA declared its first public health emergency. The emergency covers Libby and nearby Troy. It had provided an additional $130 million in cleanup and medical assistance. In 2010, Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act includes a provision which provided Medicare coverage to individuals of such public health emergencies. So it was in the news back in the 90s and in the early 2000s and even up to mid-2015, like 2015. But it's insane to see this, and we're going to look at this on Google Earth in a minute, and then we're going to look at something else, and then we're going to do earthquakes. But this warrants a whole lead story by itself without doing anything else. So I remember also that vermiculite is used in potting soil, or it used to be used in potting soil to create space and air. It's like foam. So anyway, this is from asbestos.com. The story can be traced back to 1919 when companies first started pulling vermiculite out of mines in Libby. Anyway, this is about Libby. Libby, Montana is the site of one of America's worst man-made environmental disasters. Toxic asbestos dust from the vermiculite mines that helped the town prosper for decades has killed hundreds of residents, sickening thousands more, and victims continue to surface. Known commercially as zonolite, vermiculite was used in a variety of construction materials, including insulation for homes and buildings. Decades of mining the vermiculite exposed workers and residents to toxic asbestos dust. When W.R. Grace and Company took over operation of the mines in 1963, they knew the vermiculite was contaminated with asbestos and that it caused health complications, but they didn't warn anyone, so mining continued. An estimated 400 Libby residents have died, and almost 3,000 more are currently suffering illnesses related to asbestos exposure, such as mesothelioma. The mine closed in 1990, but the devastation caused by the mining industry in Libby didn't gain national attention to receive government intervention until 1999, when the EPA stepped in and began to clean up the town. So vermiculite had been mined for more than 40 years when the company was bought in 1963 in an area about 7 miles outside of Libby. Before Grace took over ownership of the mine, a number of employees developed lung problems and several fatalities were reported. Despite these health issues, the company claimed they were unaware of the hazards of mining and milling vermiculite when they purchased the business. But W.R. Grace executives did know about the mine's high level of tremolite asbestos dust, and that exposure to the dust was damaging to the lungs, yet they never said anything to their employees. Townspeople were also affected by the asbestos-tainted vermiculite, as Grace had distributed their leftover vermiculite for use in playgrounds, backyards, gardens, roads, and a number of other popular locations in the town. When the asbestos was circulating in the air around the mine, it also was included in baseball fields and other areas where children and citizens commonly spent their time. When the Seattle Post-Intelligencer wrote a series of articles about Libby in 1999 titled Uncivil Action, A Town Left to Die, the story of the people of Libby finally gained national attention. The EPA set up an information center in Libby to address the problem. What followed is the largest, longest-running, and best asbestos cleanup project in American history. Cleanup began slowly at first as EPA workers identified the sources of contamination and began an extensive Superfund investigation. It was a project unlike any that the EPA had ever seen. Vermiculite needed to be removed from Libby homes and businesses, and the mine site needed to be addressed. Contamination of local natural resources demanded a large-scale investigation as well. By 2018, the EPA's cleanup efforts finally began to wind down. The EPA investigated more than 8,000 properties and completed cleanups of 2,600 sites, including schools and parks, the former vermiculite processing plants, and other contaminated public areas. The Montana Department of Environmental Quality will assume management of the Superfund site in January 2020. Let's see if we're still here. Here's a list of the lawsuits. They've had thousands of lawsuits. So, look at this. Montana agencies continue to claim that the state had no legal obligation to provide warning of the mine's dangers. Somehow that doesn't make sense to me. That just doesn't seem right. So let's look at this on Google Earth. See if I can work Google Earth today. I'm still learning how to manipulate it. Okay, so here's where the earthquake happened. It was in this mountain, so apparently there's a mine underneath there, and I did a search, and there are lots of different kinds of mines in these mountains. They have gold, silver, lots and lots of different mines, and apparently, you know, there were mining operations all over the place. So I'm thinking that this mine collapse was probably an old mine that, you know, it collapsed down inside there where they had tunneled in. And you can see where the trees and stuff had been stripped away. Like this might have been the site of an old mining operation. Here on the side of the mountain and over here. But if we look, so it must have been a huge collapse to cause a 2.7 magnitude earthquake. We can see spots on that mountain that are just totally bare, where old mining has taken place. So now let's move on up north here. This is what I found this morning, and this I'm assuming was the main vermiculite mine, or might have been, and it still looks awful. It's not labeled, but it's only about 3 miles from that earthquake. I did a measurement earlier today, but here's the road running through it, and this is all white, and vermiculite is white, and of course asbestos is white and powdery, and here's, it looks like water, like a trailing, where trailings are coming down or whatever, but that's still there. So I don't know if that's still releasing or not, but this is just a huge disaster, and the fact that, you know, there was an earthquake there with a mine collapse, you know, that just drew my attention to all of this. And then when the research started coming in and everything, it's like, wow, you know, who would have thought? Now here's Troy up here, this little town. They were affected by it. Well, the asbestos dust would have just gotten into the air and have gone everywhere. And Libby is right over here. So here's this open pit of, I'm thinking, asbestos, and it's just on the other side of these mountains from Libby. And there were lots of mining operations up here, like I said. So here's another one. Oh, it's the Lincoln County Landfill. Isn't that lovely? So there's that. That's the dump. Here's another old mining operation. You can see how it was all dug out, and that was probably asbestos, vermiculite mining as well. It's just an eyesore on Mother Earth. You know, just think about how she suffered. It's up on the side of the mountain, overlooking the town. So anything coming out there would just blow right over the town of Libby. So there's that. But I'm thinking we're going to see more and more of these mine collapses, or cave-ins, or whatever you want to call them. Especially with the blasting and explosions and everything that's going on. And so I would consider this up in the Yellowstone area. We can pull it up. Now it's not on the map for the last 24 hours, but it was right up here, and we can go to last 7 days, 2.5 magnitude and higher. And here it is. It's yellow because it's not in the last 24 hours, but it was orange when I looked at it on the map this morning. And it's the diamond shape, meaning it's like a explosion or something. And that's what drew my attention. I saw mine collapse. I went, oh my gosh. And it was at 0 kilometers depth, so at surface level. So right next to this Bull Lake So there's that. So we'll leave that. We spent quite a bit of time on that, but I thought it warranted it. We're going to be seeing more and more of things like this, of mines collapsing and things like that, because the earth is just unstable, and as more and more earthquakes happen, this kind of stuff is going to happen as well. Now I want to, before we get started into our earthquake report, I want you to see this earthquake that came in down here, right on this mid-Atlantic ridge. There was a 5.7 that came in this morning at 12:30 this morning. That's Pacific time, because that's my time zone. And if you'll recall, on cams, I have cams, sulfur dioxide. They still have Friday on the map for sulfur dioxide. And remember, I showed last Friday the 12th these releases of sulfur dioxide here, and one up in Russia. And this is almost the origin of it is almost exactly in the location where that earthquake happened today. And remember, I said this is a forerunner of earthquake or volcanic activity. And so, sure enough, there it happened. And if we move forward, if we go to Saturday, it was just dissipating, so not really more of a release there on Saturday. And then Sunday, it was still just dissipating. Monday, we're still seeing it just still dissipating. And here's sulfur dioxide from today. And I just see it as still dissipating. I don't know, that there might have been a little bit more of a release, but not in that red. But we do have red up here in Russia. Big release up here in Russia. Of course, a lot of times we don't get reports from Russia on earthquakes. So it's hard to find out what's going on up there. So we're going to leave this as a backdrop. So I have, okay, I'm going to close these tabs out. So we have USGS pulled up for all magnitudes for the last 24 hours. We're showing 348 earthquakes worldwide. Of those, 53 are 2.5 magnitude and higher. So, still large numbers. Here's what's about to come off the map. 2.7 near Rincon, Puerto Rico. There's 4.7 near Tarraca, Brazil. This one happened last night at 8:19 p.m. Very deep, 584 kilometers deep. So it's on this west side of Brazil, right next to Peru, is where that happened. So the deep ones cause the plates to move around the planet. Then there was a 5.1 near Anatua, Argentina at 10:01 this morning, 598 kilometers deep, so almost 600 kilometers. Then here's that 5.7 on this mid-Atlantic ridge, right on this red line, right near where we saw that sulfur dioxide release. They're calling it Tristan da Cunha region. This came in at 12:30 this morning. Then further down, here is a 5.5 near Bristol Island, South Sandwich Islands, at 9:59 this morning. Coming on up, here's one in Venezuela, a 3.6 near San Diego, Venezuela, at 1:40 this morning, 18 kilometers deep. Next in Guatemala was a 4.5 near Santa Catarina Pinula, Guatemala, at 9:04 last night. Now let's come across the Pacific. Down here, north of New Zealand, there were 3 large ones in the Kermadec region near L'Esperance Rock, New Zealand, at 5.8. That was at 2:22 this morning, and a 5.7 at 2:39 this morning, and a 5.5 at 9:01 this morning. So those were in the ocean, so they probably didn't do any damage. But it's shaking down there on that plate. Then coming on around, here's one right on the red line, 4.9 near Port Villa, Vanuatu, at 7:47 this morning. Coming on around to Indonesia area, we have 3 right here of 4.5 near Finschhafen, Papua New Guinea, at 8:02 this morning, 75 kilometers deep. Then a 5.1 near Kandrian, Papua New Guinea, at 11:05 this morning, 65 kilometers deep. And a 4.7 near Finschhafen, Papua New Guinea, at 4:04 this afternoon, 139 kilometers deep. So let's go back to this 5.1 and see if, let's check out the tsunami warnings. The only thing they're showing from today is this one, a 4.1. This was in the British Virgin Islands. So no tsunami threat from a nearby earthquake. That's the only thing we have on tsunamis. So that did not cause a tsunami. And with it being in the water, there didn't cause any damage, unless it could maybe cause an underwater landslide. You never know. Here's a 4.5 near Dobo at 2:59 this afternoon. Then 4.6 near Tilamuta at 8:44 this morning, 259 kilometers deep. And a 4.6 near Ogotua at 4:12 this afternoon, 27 kilometers deep. That was in the water. Whenever they're in the water, the force is buffered, and so that's why we don't see more damage, because when they're in the water like that, it's not going to cause buildings to fall down unless you have a tsunami or something, or a large earthquake. Here's a 4.5 near Nareen, Afghanistan at 3:17 this afternoon, 33 kilometers deep. Coming on up to Russia. Here's one off the coast of the Kamchatka Peninsula. 4.8 near Petropavlovsk, Kamchatsky, Russia at 8:22 this morning, 77 kilometers deep. So I believe that is all of the international quakes. So now we're going to go to 2.5 magnitude or high. All magnitudes, starting with Hawaii. Let's see what's going on here. We've got 11 here today. Here's a 1.0. This is at Mauna Loa. It's pretty active there. At 8:16 last night at a minus 1.1 kilometer depth. So the earthquake was up in the side of the crater of the volcano. 1.8 Mauna Loa at 10:31 last night at a minus 0.5 kilometers depth. 2.3 Volcano, Hawaii. Another 1.8 at Mauna Loa at 1:29 this morning at a minus 2.5 kilometer depth. 2.0 Mauna Loa at 3:34 this morning. 1.9 Pahala at 4:19 this morning. 2.4 Leilani Estates, 5:21 this morning. 1.8 Kaloa, 7:12 this morning. 2.3 Mauna Loa at 11:42 this morning at minus 0.8 kilometers depth. 2.9 Volcano, Hawaii, 12:59 this afternoon, and a 1.3 at Mauna Loa at 3:31 this morning at a minus 1 kilometer depth. So, see, this is like mountainous, and these were at negative depth because the earthquake is up high in the mountain, and the magma is moving up there in the chamber, causing the earthquake. So it's showing lots of movement there. Now let's come on around to Dominican Republic. The largest one was right here on this red line of 4.4 near Stony Ground on Guia at 3:29 this morning. But it was in the ocean, so probably nobody even felt it. So we have 11 here today of all magnitudes. I'll call them off. 1.8, 1.5, 0.8, 2.4, 2.0, 4.4, 2.9, 2.6, 3.1, 2.8, and 2.8. So most of those were in the ocean. Now we're moving on up to the Alaska region. We're showing 154 here today. So that's more than we've seen in a long time up here. Let's see how many of those are 2.5 and higher magnitude. 21. So we're going to start with these. Here's a 4.2 near Montignac Island, Alaska, and this is the Aleutian Island region at 2:31 this afternoon. Here's a 2.6 near Nikolsky, 2.6 near Unalaska, 2.6 Big Lake, that's in the Anchorage area. Oh my gosh. Look at Kobuk. And this is just 2.5 magnitude and higher. There's 17 here. Most of these are at some depth. Here's only one that's at the surface. Here's a 3.1 at surface level. 4.7. That happened yesterday at 10:07 last night. So it looks like that was the largest one. And then here's a 3.6, 3.3, lots of threes, 3.1, 2.7, so 17. So let's take a peek up here at Kobuk for all magnitudes. We got 86. Oh my gosh, 86 here today. I don't remember it being that many. I mean, it was swarming. What, last month sometime? I can't remember when. We might have seen this many. Frankly, I don't remember 86 right here. So a bunch of them are at 0 depth, meaning they're at the surface, or very shallow, like 0.1 kilometer depth. A lot of twos, low twos, and high ones. 86. Oh my gosh. There's a 1.8 at Koptovik, and we can see they're peppered around coming down the middle of the state. Here's this cluster in this Alaska mountain range. There's more here today. See how they're kind of clustered up? There's 12 here today at Cantwell. Normally we'll see like 1 or 2. And these are like mid to high ones. The highest one is a 2.0 at Talkeetna. Here's Anchorage. Not that many there. But we are seeing more here coming down in this Cook Inlet and down along here near Redoubt. Redoubt Volcano is right here. So having all these earthquakes right next to the volcano that's always kind of iffy. But we've definitely seeing more coming down through that Cook Inlet today. 2.0 Cape Yakataga. Here's a 2.3 Cape Yakataga. So there's that. Now let's come on down into the lower 48. We're going to start here in the New Madrid hazardous zone. We've got 3 here today. 1.5 Tiptonville, Tennessee. 2.5 Ridgely, Tennessee, and a 2.8 Ridgely, Tennessee. So those are higher than we normally see them. 2.5 and 2.8. Coming on across, we got a 2.9 near Enid, Oklahoma, and a 2.4 near Harper, Kansas. Now in Utah, we've got one down here at Panguitch, Utah at 2.1 at 7:26 this morning at a minus 0.6 kilometer depth. And then up here at Farron, we've got a cluster of 4. It looks like 1.1, 1.1, 1.1, 1.3. Now coming on up into Yellowstone. As we go north of Yellowstone, this is still part of the Yellowstone area. Let's zoom out a bit. We're showing 6 here today. Let's start with these quarry blasts. Here's a 1.9 quarry blast near Butte, Montana at 12:01 this afternoon at a minus 2 kilometer depth. We see this almost every day here during the week, right around 12 o'clock. And a 1.5 magnitude quarry blast near Townsend, Montana at 10:48 this morning at a minus 2 kilometer depth. Then we've got 2 at Manhattan, Montana, 2.6 and 1.4. This 2.6 down here, it says 2.7. This came in at 3:34 this morning at a minus 2.9 kilometer depth. So the earthquake was up in the mountain again. And then there's 2 near Townsend, Montana, a 2.3 and a 2.5. So, you know, blasting just doesn't help. I just don't see why they think blasting helps matters. That just bothers me. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording while I pull up my Tremor map. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So let's look at our Tremor map. In the last 3 hours, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tremors up near the Seattle area. Let's look at the last 24 hours. Well, it looks like the force is moving up towards the Seattle area. There's still a few up here to the west of Mount St. Helens, or southwest or northwest of Portland. But see, right here, they're clustering up. So in the last 24 hours, we're seeing 2.3 hours of tremor. So the tremors were right around here. So let's see what we've got. 1.2 in Antioch, Washington. 1.6 Ellensburg, Washington. 0.5 Desert Air. 0.3 Mattawa. And a 0.5 near Amboy. Now that's Mount St. Helens is right there, so this is south of Mount St. Helens. So that's what's up there today. Coming down into California. Now let's kind of zoom out here. Okay, we only have one that's 2.5 magnitude or higher. It's at Grapevine. It was at 2.6. So, let's start over here. Near Quincy, a 0.4. Then here, 0.4 near Cold Springs. We have another one to the west of Pyramid Lake, a 0.4. And we've got some down here in the Mount Rose hiking area. We've got a minus 0.1, a 0.1, and a 0.3. They're calling these near Verdi. Oh yeah, it's on the north side of... Why are they calling that 40? That's I-80. They're calling it 40. Anyway. Here's a 0.3 near Incline Village. It's in the mountains. It's north of Lake Tahoe. Now, here's one at Silver Springs at the Lahontan Reservoir, 0.8. That came in at 4:14 this afternoon. Here's a 1.8 near Courant. Here's a 1.6 magnitude explosion near Tonopah at 2:26 this afternoon. 16 kilometers deep. That was a deep one. Talk about underground blasting. I'm not going to go there. So here in the Hawthorne area, we're showing 11 today. They're small ones and under. And then in southern Nevada, we got just 2 or 3 right down there. So let's come back up to California and look at this east side. Here's a 0 magnitude at Bridgeport. Okay, and we're going to do these groupings a little separately. Here's the Mammoth Lakes area. We've got 15 here today. And they're small. Most of them are under 1. The largest was this 1.0. So that's an uptick. And then right down here, they're calling these near Round Valley, and we've got 8 here today. And this is part of the Long Valley caldera. See, volcanic tableland. Here's Bishop, California here, so it's to the west of that. So these are low ones. To the highest one was a 1.8. Coming on down, there's a 0.8 near Big Pine. This is the Coso Junction region. We've got 7 here today. They're small, mid ones and under. Here's a 1.7 Lake Isabella. Here's the 2.6 near Grapevine. 1.7 Pine Mountain Club. Here are 2 explosions or blasts. A 1.1 quarry blast at Mojave at 11:57 this morning, minus 0.9 kilometers deep. And a 1.8 quarry blast near Boren at 4:30 this afternoon at minus 0.8 kilometers deep. Now coming into Southern California area, we've got 31 on the map today, including this one in the ocean, a 1.6 near Carlsbad at 3:57 this afternoon. And here's a 1.3 in Baja. They're calling it near Campo, California, but it's in Baja at 10:08 this morning. Here's a 2.0 quarry blast near Los Algodones, Baja. So we got some more at the Salton Sea. 1.6, 1.8, 1.7. And then more here at Kauai and peppered around. So let's come up this red line, which is the San Andreas fault line now. Here's a 1.0 Parkfield, 1.6 Pinnacles, and 0.9 Pinnacles. And here's an uptick in the San Francisco area. And remember, the Hayward Fault runs to the east of the bay. So let's start here. A 1.3 magnitude quarry blast near Loyola at 11:54 this morning at a minus 0.3 kilometer depth. Here's a 1.8 Alum Rock, 1.4 Tracy, 1.3 Oakland, 1.5 Rodeo, and here's a quarry blast, a 1.2 magnitude quarry blast in the bay. They're blasting in the bay near Santa Venetia at 11:30 this morning at 0 depth. So for whatever reason, they're blasting right there in the water. And then the geysers have 30 here today, so that's not like 80. So that's okay. That's better. And here's a 1.9. That's one of the larger ones. Most of them are under 1. Here's a 2.2. So now let's zoom out and see if anything happened while we were doing our report. Well, here's a new one. 2.1 near Koktovik, Alaska. Here's a new one in the Philippines. Here's a 4.5 near Namuac, Philippines. This came in at 7:19 tonight. 50 kilometers deep. Some more came in at Kobuk, it looks like. 2.7, 3.1. So I think that's a wrap. So we are in the end times. I do believe that. No time like the present to get your spiritual house in order and get ready to exit. So until next time, God bless you. Go in peace and good night.